that I learned early on that if you upset her, she's going to play a trick back on you. That was her way to keep you straight. The very first time was when we moved into our apartment at college, and she was cooking a ham steak on the grill with bananas. And I informed her that that wasn't the way to do it. She said, well, this is what my grandmother does it. I said, I don't think so. So she called her grandmother, and it's too bad I was right, because that didn't set too well with her that I knew more about how her grandmother cooked than she did. Well, the next morning I was getting ready to go to class, and I was in the shower. The water was extremely hot, and it was on my head, and all of a sudden I turned beet red. I said, scream, Susan, I'm hemorrhaging. I don't know where it's coming from, I'm hemorrhaging. Well, then she giggled, and I looked up, and there she was standing above the shower curtain on a stool with a quart of tomato juice with the lid off at room temperature pouring on my head. And I said, what are you doing? She said, I just want to get even with you, so make me feel like I feel with my grandmother. And right there I knew that we were in for a fun time throughout our marriage, and it was. That's just one of many, but that was the first one. Another funny one is when I moved to Rouseville in '65 and went to work at First National Bank. Lloyd Benson Sr. owned it and hired me, put me down there. And came home one day. I just had a thoroughbred mare shipped in from Florida, and she'd had a foal, and the foal wasn't doing well. And Susan and I were both up during the night with her, but I went home at noon, and there Susan was sitting on the floor in the stall in blue jeans with the foal's head in her lap, trying to give it a bottle. And I proceeded to tell her, I said, Susan, that's not the right way to do it. Well, the problem is I had two bank officers with me. And she said, I embarrassed her in front of them. Well, she got me. It was Friday. The banks had just started closing on Saturday. So the 12 tail lines with the lines out the door with all the merchants getting changed for the next day. And I had thought I was really important. I had purchased a pager, clipped on my belt. I don't know why now. But in those days, they weren't digital. They gave out a voice message. Dr. Smith called the emergency room. Dr. Smith, the lady is your patient in number room 23, needs to see you. Well, I'm standing there looking at the lines, and all of a sudden it said, beep, Mr. Miller, the lady said you left your underwear on the bed. Lord, cut this thing off. The whole room was laughing. I turned beet red, and what's worse, I knew it was going to repeat it twice. I couldn't break the pager. It cost too much. I should have. Beep, Mr. Miller, the lady said you left your underwear on the bed. Well, by that time, everybody was on stitches, and I wish I was anywhere but there. And so I go into my office and call her. I said, Susan, what's going on? She said, well, how you embarrassed me in front of those bank officers? I said, yes, ma'am. Well, you embarrassed me hard. So when I went to our bedroom mad, and there in the middle of the bed was your laundry ready to be folded and put away, your briefs, your t-shirt, and your socks. And I thought, well, I'll get even with him now. So she called the pager lady and convinced her to make that page over the air. Well, needless to say, I got rid of the pager that same day. With a wife like that at home, there was no way I was going to carry a boy's pager. But it's one thing after another. You know, I could tell many stories, but we had a fun life. It was never boring. Maybe one other time, Miss Jones, Miss Gertrude, her grandmother, Miss A.C. Jones, would come to Brownsville and help Susan go to the local slaughterhouse to purchase kidneys, lungs, hearts, whatever they put in cowboy stew. And Susan was in the kitchen with a white apron on, with a butcher knife, a long one, cutting it up. She had tied the little boys up with cotton rope in the sunken living room to play cowboys and Indians. And she did it very loosely. And they got away quite quickly. So she said, well, they said, do it again, mother, do it again. So she tied them up again. This time a little tougher.
No, she sent us down pretty hard, that girl.
Well, anyway, and you know, she wiped her forehead and had blood on her face and cheeks and cutting up those things up.
Covered in blood.
Huh? Covered in blood and a white apron.
I remember her tying the knife with a butcher knife. I mean, tying the knot.
No, Billy, no, don't exaggerate too much. Anyway,
No,
but
he's right. She did. She did not want us to get away.
because she wanted to finish the job. So then what happened? The doorbell rang. So she went to the door, forgot to lay the butcher knife down. With all that blood on the butcher knife, the door opened and two little ladies from the First United Methodist Church there calling on her. And they looked at this woman covered in blood.
They looked
And
at
no, well, Trace was in a sunken living room, and they could see him tied up, and he said, "Help!" well, they said, "We think we've come at a very bad time," and they hastily retreated. He shut the door and thought, "Well, I'll have the cops here in a little bit," but they never came. I guess they were just glad to get away with their lives, so they didn't call anybody. It's one thing after another that she had so many things that happened that I could write a book of short stories about my life with Susan, and it would be funny. The last one I'm going to tell you is, in '71 we were in Las Vegas showing horses. We were there for 2 weeks. The manager of the Stardust Hotel had been here to this ranch on 2 occasions hunting with us. And so when we got to Stardust, he had a suite of rooms, 2 rooms, and a big room between. And it was free comp. I didn't know that at the time, but he comped it to us. And the second night we were there, he invited us over to his house for cocktails. Susan and I went. Susan, what about the boys? I said, Susan, they're 8 and 9 years old. They know how to sign a ticket. They know how to leave a tip. They're fine. She said, I might steal my babies. They steal them. After they feed them one meal, they're going to bring them back. Don't worry about that. So anyway, we went to the cocktail party, and about an hour, she called the hotel to ring the room, and the boys didn't answer. And she panicked. She said, "We've got to go. Somebody's taking my babies." And I said, "Oh, I don't think so, but let's go." So I excused myself from Mark Twain and Swain, and we went to the hotel. We went to the room, and sure, there were no boys there. And she was crying. Just imagine all kind of bad things happened to her babies. And well, I went to the closet, looked in the closet, and lo and behold, the blue sport coat blazers were gone. Their dress shoes, their tie. Susan does one of them. The Jones blood is coming out heavy. They got dressed up and they're on the town as soon as we left. Well, so I went down to the floor and there was a security guard there, and I said, "Did you see two little boys?" "Well, did I see them?" He said, "Let me tell you, I saw them right over that machine right over there. And the big one, that was Trace, put a quarter in and hit a jackpot." And I walked over and said, "Boys, you can't be on the floor, you're minors." And Trace looked at him and said, "I'm a midget, I'm not a minor." Well, anyway, I said, "Where are they?" "Right down that hall, you'll see them." So I went down the hall, and as it opens up, there they are sitting at a table, facing each other, with giant banana splits in front of them, and 2 showgirls that had very little clothes on, waiting on them, and they were loving it. I said, "Yeah, the blood of W.W. Jones runs deep. These boys are on the town." So nobody stole her babies, and they had a whale of a time, but just one thing after another, Susan was a giving person. This is the last one I'm going to tell. We lived in a house that we built in 66, and we still live in that same house. I told people I have the same wife since 62, the same house, same phone number since 65, the same house since 66. Well, I had a set of house plans drawn, about a 5,200 square foot house. Dial Duncan and I had about a 500-acre farm in Harlingen on Bass Boulevard, and I was going to keep 90 acres to build a home on. Back up to a big lake, 20-acre lake in the back of it, and that's where I got the big trees and a gorgeous home. And I let it out for bids and had ready to pour the foundation. I said, "Well, I better go home and check our account," because I had put aside $250,000 to make the first big payment on the house, and I wouldn't have to borrow quite so much money. Well, when I went to the bank, the money was gone. Lord, what happened to the money? So I go home and I said, "Susan, what happened to the money?" She had tears in her eyes. She said, "Dan, I don't want to move out of this house. our baby's fingerprints are in the yard, everything about it is raising our babies. But what about the money? Where's the money? And Tears and I, she said, Dan, we didn't need that money. I said, well, what'd you do with it? She said, well, I knew if the money stayed in the account, I couldn't stop you from building that house. But if the money wasn't there, I knew you wouldn't do it. So she said, I went to Southmost, the poorest part of our town, and found poor people that need the money worse than us. And I gave away the $250,000 in families. I said, you what? You gave them money away. And I looked at her for a second, tears flowing down her cheeks. I put my arm around her and I said, Susan, I couldn't have done it. But I'm not mad at you. That was a great thing that you did. And I love you for it. If there were more people like you, it'd be a better world. And that's why I've never talked about that. Susan was a giving person and gave a lot to a lot of people. Most people don't even know about. And she was the love of my life. And the first time I saw her, I went to the front door and opened the door of the Jones house, and there she stood. I thought the prettiest woman I ever saw in my life. We rode down Ocean Drive in the back, and the other days I weighed 170 pounds, had a 36-inch waist, and drove a white MGA sports car, and I thought I was pretty cool. But I looked at her and I said, I lost my heart right there. I sat in the kitchen when we got back from the ride and on the stool and watched her break chocolate eclairs for little brother Dick. He was about 12 years old. And we talked about everything. To me, it's the smartest person I'd ever known, the most articulate, and so many things. She could tell you what opera they were singing, all about the symphonies. She was up on life, but most of us aren't really on. And when I left that night and went back to my house, my brother was there. Billy's here. He's my younger brother, 4 years younger. And he introduced me to Susan. And I walked in and Billy said, well, how'd you like her? I said, Billy, I'm going to marry her. He said, you're going to what? I promise you, I'm going to marry her. And that was in January. We got engaged on her birthday. And this the 25th of June. We got married in August the 24th. And we've been married 52 years and 8 months. And had a wonderful time, a wonderful life. And thank God, I met her, and we fell in love and got married and stayed married. And raised 2 kids that we love dearly. She worships them. And I'll say this about them. Both boys call me almost every night, and I see Trace 2 or 3 times a day, to be sure I'm okay. Say, Dad, we love you. Do you need anything? I said, I'm fine. Okay, you let us know. And if I go somewhere and they are there, they'll walk up to me and kiss me on the cheek. Say, Dad, I love you. When they were in college, I'd fly and they'd meet me at the airport and have this giant guy playing football, and they'd walk up unashamed, put their arms around me and kiss me on the cheek and say, Dad, we love you. And we are and have been a loving family, and I'm proud of both of them. And Susan might have been more proud, because I could go in the case sometimes and she'd run interference for them. Thank you all for being here. We have Mom's ashes. I'm going to let her granddaughters spread the ashes on the oak tree. And Claire, I'll start with you.